Good morning from a sunny Bloemfontein in South Africa. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Petroline and I am the owner of the Soap House. In English, it means the soap house. So I am in the process of scaling my business and moving into wholesale and private label as well. And in order to do that, there are a lot of things that I need to put in place for my business to get ready for that. So I am sharing that journey with all of you, and in the hopes that there's something that you can take out of it. If you want to scale your business, it doesn't matter what type of business you have, all of these principles should be able to apply to your business. I have over 19 years in operations management, so some of these things are fairly easy for me to implement, and I can understand that it might not come as naturally for people that have never had to deal with some of these processes. So I hope I can make it more simple for you and simplify the entire process. Anyways, so this week actually, I am starting to look at my standard operating procedures. So about 4 weeks ago, where everything really sort of started, about 4 weeks ago, I had a stall takeover at a market. So what that entailed is I invited a little girl to come and take over my stall. She was on her way to participate in the World Gymnastics Trampoline Championships in the UK, and I know that she was obviously collecting money, but I invited her to come and take over my stall, and I told her she can, all of the stock that are there, she can sell. And I was hoping that at that particular stall, if I do about 600, 700 rands worth of sales for my soaps that day, granted that I do not actually do any marketing and it's not a massive market, that's good for me. That's good for my sales. And I was thinking like, okay, if we can just have like, if I can get people there and we can collect about 1,000 rand, maybe a little bit more, it would be awesome. That day, we made over 4,000 rand worth of sales at the stall. I had sugar scrubs and I had soaps. That's all that I had. And that's really where I realized what is possible in terms of if you really work at it and if I actually work a little bit more at the business. So from there, the decision, after evaluating everything, from there, the decision that next year I am scaling into wholesale and private label as well in my business. So the first thing I did, and I spoke a little bit about it in the previous video, the first thing I did is working on my brand messaging, because obviously my brand messaging will be a little bit different. I've never really sat down because it was really a very much a part-time thing that I did. I only exhibited at one market per month, one a month, and that's what I was doing, and the rest were all word of mouth, all the rest of my sales. So obviously now there are different things that need to be put in place. So the first thing was to put the brand message in place and the branding and everything. So I'm still working with that. I got my brand, the proposal, the brand messaging first draft. I got that back from the company, and I'm going through that, looking at that. Already sent him some information, some feedback, but I'm very happy about what I saw. It's going to look cool. It's trendy. It's modern. So yeah, I'm excited about that. Not yet ready to show you anything, so I'll do that in due course. But I did start to work on my operating procedures, standard operating procedures. Now, for those of you who do not know what is a standard operating procedure, it is a step-by-step instruction or a guideline that you put together to tell somebody in your business exactly what are the steps why are they doing what they're doing? What are the steps that they need to follow? And then also that will help you to ensure consistency, efficiency, and also help you with the safety guidelines. So essentially, if you do, it's similar to having a recipe, right? If you bake a cake and you have a recipe and you print the recipe out and you give the recipe to 10 different people, they all would be able to follow the recipe and have something similar at the end of the recipe, right? So obviously, a standard operating procedure is just more in more detail, more, I almost want to say strict, because every time a product comes out at the end of that process, it must be exactly the same and it must look exactly the same. The quality must be exactly the same. So why a standard operating procedure for processes in your business? When you scale your business, obviously it's not necessary if you are alone, because you know what the process is about in mixing lye, you know what the process is about in getting ingredients together to put a soap batch together. But whenever you start to get other people into your business, you want them to follow the exact same process every single time and take the exact same safety measures every single time, because that's going to give you a consistent product at the end of the process. And that's really what you're after, apart from the safety and everything else and the efficiency. In terms of the efficiency, you already give them a guideline as to how they need to do the process, because that is, through your experience, the most efficient way to do the process. So you literally cut to the chase. Now, first of all, it gives you compliance from your team members. So they know what they need to do and they comply with the exact same process if they have a written procedure. One of the main things that you have to keep in mind when you do start to employ people is that you cannot assume that they know what you know. You cannot assume that they will do things the way you were doing it just because it's in your head, just because you've done it thousands of times, that you cannot assume that somebody else is going to do it the same way. Obviously, it helps with training, because an SOP, literally, if you have somebody new coming in, an SOP will give them the necessary documentation to be properly trained. Also, if I have somebody else that needs to train a person, a new person coming through the door, I need to make sure that the training that person is going to give is the right training. So having an SOP from which you can do the training, or somebody else can do the training. Anybody can literally do the training if they've done the process before, and the training will be consistently delivered. Then also it helps with risk management later on in your business. So if there are any issues, maybe something happens, there's somebody spilled and we found out, okay, but because now we have to go back and evaluate against the SOP what went wrong, and that's part of the risk management. One day I'll make a video about that. But now you want to evaluate against the SOP what went wrong, and then that will give you a good indication as to, okay, should we add another step? Should we combine steps? Should we take out a step? What do you need to adjust to make sure that whatever has happened won't happen again? And also, it gives you an opportunity to make provision for potential hazard. Let's take in terms of mixing lye, to make provision for potential hazards that could occur. Then obviously your documentation is in place. If you have an SOP in place, your documentation is in place. Then, especially if you want to do wholesale and maybe even private label, if it's for a very large company, they might want to come and audit your documentation, or they might want to ask for your documentation. Is your documentation in place? And even though I am putting my documentation in place now, and I'm still the only person running my business, I'm doing everything. It gives you time to put the documentation in place, but when you do get to that point where you are looking for your first wholesale account, if they come back and they ask for the documentation, you don't have to scramble around to get that in place. So putting it in place, even if you're this sole person in your business at this point in time, and you know you're going to scale at some point, you're going to have employees, one of the best things you could do. There's nothing as worse as trying to catch up with documentation in your business. Ask me, been there for many years. You don't want to catch yourself at that point. And then also one of the main things is it gives accountability and responsibility to the certain individuals. Always remember that accountability can never be delegated. You cannot delegate accountability, but you can delegate responsibility. So if I make you accountable today for making sure that all the lye is mixed for this coming week, then if something goes wrong, I'm coming to you and I ask you to fix what went wrong, or I will want answers from you. But so that accountability, you cannot delegate that accountability to somebody else. Then it just becomes like a blame game. But you can delegate the responsibility, the actual person doing the work, that can be delegated. So if you do delegate that, then people would know exactly what they are responsible for. So if I delegate the mixing of lye to Johnny, then Johnny can pull the SOP and he can see immediately what he is responsible for, as opposed to trying to guess what he's supposed to do. So that's one of the, and that prevents a lot of miscommunication between team members, especially if things are being delegated. So in summary, your SOPs is really something that you do want to have in place. If you know that you are going to work towards scaling your business and maybe having some accounts making soap, or even if you make candles or whatever you make, if you make that, know that you're going to scale that and make that in larger batches. I did put up, quickly, I will run you through an example of an SOP. I did put mine up there. By the way, a copy of this is available for you, completely written out. If you're making soap, obviously, for this particular procedure, it's written out. You can go to my Patreon page and you can get a copy there if you sign up to my Patreon. So yeah, completely free of. I might decide to move it actually to my website so that you can pay per template, but for now, hop onto my Patreon. If you sign up, you'll get all of the templates absolutely for free there. What was the other thing? Oh, I wanted to say that if you quickly look at the format of the standard operating procedure, there will always be objective. We say what the procedure is for, then there will be responsibilities, who's responsible for it, because you might have different levels of experience in your business. So you need to be clear on who is actually allowed to be responsible for this process. You cannot have I want to say a child, but we don't, I mean, obviously you have to be above a certain age to work as a casual. But you cannot have, let's take, for example, in my case, we, for the most part, and will continue to manually measure out things because of our load shedding. That's what I'm gearing our business for, to be able to accommodate load shedding as well. So you cannot, a person that cannot count, and a person that's low skilled, they cannot count, they cannot read. You cannot delegate the lye mixing process to that person, because they need to be able to read on a scale. They need to be able to make subtractions or the calculations depending on how much lye need to be solution needs to be mixed. So yeah, that's it. So you have to put in there what level of person can be responsible for this. Then we outline our materials and equipment we're going to use, and then we set out the procedures step by step. We tell exactly, now you take your equipment, this is what you need, you measure out your water, you measure out your lye, you mix it, yes, where you need to mix it, you have to have your safety gear on. So we give them the exact steps that they need to follow in order to do the process, and we tell them also what safety precautions they need to take. And then there will be a level of quality control. For example, in my case, the batch needs to be marked with certain things on the batch or on the sticker or whatever, however, or whether you write with a Cokie on the container, but that needs to be marked and I tell exactly what details need to be there. And if there's in my case, a digital logbook where they have to complete and say if there was any issues. Because if you have somebody that's making a lye solution and there's an issue with the lye batch, they suspect there might be, based on what they see, there might be an issue with the lye batch. You want to document that, and you want to have a recording of that so that you can follow up on subsequent batches or do your investigation, whichever way you decide to do that. All right, so that's about standard operating procedures. I will continue to write my SOPs, especially over the next 2 weeks. By the time I get into the new year, they should be all said and done. But yeah, hop onto my Patreon, get a free copy if you know you're somebody that's going to move into scaling your business next year, and get your documentation in place from the start. I'll speak to you again. Bye.